So I was going to kind of skip this one, but since you sort of hinted at it, are we anywhere near ready for a multi-party system? I mean, we're seeing such divergence in the Republican Party now, and the Democratic Party certainly has their progressive and, the sides. I mean, in other countries around the world, they have multiple parties and everybody has to get along. With the two-party system, well, we're seeing what we're seeing. America anywhere near ready for that?
No, we'll never have a multi-party system. I mean, we're not electorally, we're not, it's not that, they're bad or they're good or whatever. It's just that our structure does not beget that, right? So we don't, unlike parliamentary systems where parties are rewarded for a proportion of the vote that they get and get a number of seats that they can then use to leverage majority alliances to form governments. We don't have that, right? So if you, if you're a new party, whether it's the Reform Party or the Green Party or whatever, even if you're able to get by with meeting the stringent requirements that states have to get on the ballot and the signature requirements, and you meet public funding thresholds, even if you're able to get people elected, so you have 3 people in Congress, a big deal, that will do nothing. And it is not how our government is structured. Our government is structured so that we have these relatively large umbrella parties. Sometimes they're much better at kind of incorporating the will of that segment of the population. At other times, they kind of lose their footing. Typically, what happens is that the party out of power, think back to the past 4 years before Biden was elected, you saw this factionalism within the Democratic Party with, the Squad and AOC and progressives challenging kind of the moderate standard bearers, embodied by people like Nancy Pelosi. That's pretty common. Think back to the Obama administration when the Tea Party was significantly challenging the kind of moderate standard bearers of the Republican Party. And so, my anticipation is that Biden will be able to consolidate so much of the diversity of opinion. And right now is the time for the Republicans to kind of be sorting out their factionalization. And they have a lot of sorting to do, right? You have a wide gamut. But, what we've seen in the past when third parties have been effective, including with the original progressives, the ideas that they bring to the table are incorporated by one of the major parties. And that's how our party system tends to be pretty adaptable and flexible, but also kind of permanent, right? We've had 2 political parties essentially since our founding. Yeah, you've had, the know-nothings and the progressives and Whigs and, that come and go, but this kind of, party of Jefferson Jackson has flown through the decades, through the centuries, and I don't see any real reason, barring any kind of significant constitutional amendments or electoral reforms, that would change.
So, thank you so much for your time today. As we wrap this up, I have 2 hopefully softball questions for you. What do you see as the most exciting thing in politics right now?
Interesting. 2 things. The first thing I see is I'm really optimistic about the future of the country because I'm optimistic about one of the areas I research is what people believe according to how old they are. And I'm enormously optimistic because of the beliefs of millennials and Gen Z voters and their activism, their passion, their priorities, their diversity, all mean good things for our democracy. So that's really exciting. Perhaps a little more frightening, but also interesting is I'm really intrigued by how technology is impacting our democracy. And I think that's a much less cohesive story because there's really good sides and there's really bad sides to that. But it is the new frontier, and it's the stuff that I think will be most interesting over the next couple of decades.
We really are blessed to be working in the industry we're in. The
Yep.
exposure to the students gives us that
Yeah.
optimism, right?
Yeah.
What's something nobody's paying attention to that'll end up being a fairly decent political issue in the
Well,
future?
I think that this technology issue, there are some people that are paying attention to it, but the thing that I'm seeing increasingly is that um, you have these enormous corporations, including social media corporations, that are essentially self-regulating, and the impact that they have can overwhelm or overturn democracies. And governments, legislators, regulators lack the expertise to know how to go about making sure that they're protecting democracies. And throughout our history, we've had to balance, on the one hand, free speech and capitalism with protecting democracy. And at this point, the number of people who know how to do that, that are in government, certainly there are people in the tech sector that know how to do that, but they're making a lot more money being in the tech sector than working for federal government. So I think that that's really important. I mean, we saw how social media can play into elections, both with Facebook in 2016, but with Twitter as well during the Trump presidency. And these are really important considerations, and it's kind of an area of law that I think a lot of young people should be focusing on, because there are a dearth of experts.